Hunting by Stars. Chapter 23. The Lights Come On. French. It seems that once again you are having difficulty following the rules, Mr. Dunsome. Agent Mellon glared at me over the thin frames of her spectacles. I fought to maintain eye contact even though it was making me nauseated. Because that's what was required, eye contact when requested, complete subservience when demanded. Fear had grown in my body since I'd been here. It reached new places at a higher volume than ever before. It was more intimate, more immediate. I opened my mouth to speak, but there were no words. What should I say? That the notes had already been in the mattress? That I'd never seen them before? Would she believe me if I told her that I'd written them myself? I couldn't be responsible for the correction of the entire isolation block. Their names bubbled up in my throat, slipped around my fingers. You know that having any personal items in your quarter is strictly forbidden, do you not? Yes, ma'am. I wish I had thought to bring something, anything, to stuff in my ears while I was in the correction room. Not that you could block out that wail. Its pitch was set to shake your brain on its stem. I lowered my eyes to my lap, watching my fingers hold and release every name. Kirby, Marsh, Shell. And so, can you explain this? I looked up, but the desk was clear. No napkins, no bag of evidence, nothing. I looked at Mellon, and there in her hand was a pen. The pen Mitch had left behind. The one I had stashed under the toilet tank. The relief made me blink hard, pushed the air in and out of my body quicker. To an observer, I must have seemed on the verge of tears. And maybe I was. They hadn't found the notes after all. Well, what do you have to say for yourself? She allowed the pen to roll off her palm and hit the desk like a single die. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I found it in the hall. Someone must have dropped it. God, there was so much room in my head right now, so much movement. I wasn't trapped, not as bad as I thought I was. I could handle this. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure anyone would believe me that it was just in the hallway, so I hid it in my room. I didn't use it at all. I just kept it there until I could figure out what to do. She watched me speak, checking my eyes, which direction I looked, my breathing patterns, anything that would betray a lie. But I was so relieved that this version of the truth came easily. It was convincing, even to me. Mr. Dewsome, you know the rules, do you not? Yes, ma'am, I do. This is contraband. Yes, ma'am, it is, but I promise I never wrote a single mark with it. That much was the God's honest truth. I softened my gaze, opening my eyes wide in a sign of innocence. She opened a drawer and swiped the pen into it like it was something rancid she'd rather not touch. Very well. The next time you come across anything like this, the appropriate response is to leave it where it is and to call one of the watchmen to come and retrieve it. That's a great idea, ma'am. I wish I hadn't panicked. I apologize. That's enough of you. She folded her hands in front of her. You do realize that I'm still going to have to offer corrective measures for this infraction, of course. I nodded. I didn't have words for that. I was going to the correction room after all. At least I was only taking myself there and not any of the others. I could live through the screech, holding on to that to lessen the pain. She buzzed in the watchman who had brought me to her office. They stood in the doorway, arms clasped behind their backs, awaiting instruction. I tried to pull myself together for what was to come. Return our student to his abode. He is to remain there under lock and key for exactly 48 hours. No food and no privileged program duties. He is to do nothing but think about his actions and meditate on the program. After the room is cleaned, of course. Holding back my relief that I was only going to my room was the hardest con of the day. 2 days alone, 2 days without interaction was a lot once you were used to a strict schedule that included visiting almost 40 voices a day. The worst part was trying to tamp down the unreasonable gratitude I felt. Maybe Mellon wasn't so bad after all. Maybe she was fair and just. No, I told myself. No, she is a monster, and this is a monstrous situation. I shouldn't be grateful. Grateful meant I was broken. At least they left the light on, and it did give me time to think, after I checked the mattress just in case. The slit in the fabric was small, and inside the notes remained unmolested. I thought about the risk I was taking for the inmates. Was it worth the possibility of discovery to carry hopeful messages out into a world without hope? And how would I even get them out the door? I was sure that on the day they let me out into the field, everything I wore and carried would be closely scrutinized from my naked ass up. I decided sometime that first night that I was going to have to get rid of them and carry them out of here at the same time. I recalled something Mitch had said back in the infirmary about reading the Bible, about how it was ridiculous to think that book was the important thing and not the words themselves that should live inside of you. So one by one, I slipped the notes out of the mattress, memorized them, and then flushed them. I dared only flush once an hour in case I was being monitored. It took at least that long to memorize some of them, and I was in no hurry. I had nothing but time in here. The next morning I finished the entire set. Some of them seemed like they were just for me, or at least that's how I took them. Maybe because I needed them. You're not alone. None of us are. A new day is coming. I can feel it. I spent the rest of the day running laps around the room, whisper singing each note back to myself. I made up a song to help me remember them. I couldn't stand to lose even one word. A few of the napkins I hadn't read before. I tried not to get distracted, but a few of them were vague enough that I played a game of Indian geography. Could this person be a relative? Might one of them be someone I'd met? One in particular stuck in my brain like it was pinned to the inside of my skull. I had no problem remembering it. The fight was in not getting completely hung up on it, to the detriment of the rest of the bundle. I am still Margaret Elliott. I will always be Marguerite Elliott. Tell my mother that I am alive. She is an elder and needs help. She don't remember too well anymore. Tell her Bam Ma Pi Gig Ga Wabiam. Someone else was missing their elder. Someone else was putting down the words that held us together. Mambai Pi Gigwabiam in Ashwa Na Biomwin. There was no word for goodbye, only for see you later. I hoped that was true. I needed it to be true. Exactly 48 hours later, the door swung open. I was less excited than I should have been, almost indifferent, until I saw Mitch standing there. Mitch! He cleared his throat, straightening his tie as he did. It always seemed to be choking him. He looked up and down the hallway before stepping inside. Hello, Francis. I'm here to notify you that your correction period is up. Yeah, thanks, I guess. I sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for him to join me like he always did. Instead, he stood a few feet away, as if I were hostile or infectious. He stayed close to the door. It made me sad. So much time wasted listening to his dumb stories. All the days spent looking for and sometimes finding little traces of the boy I used to know in his words and gestures, and now I couldn't even get him to sit down. I am, of course, disappointed that you chose to break one of the few simple rules that have been handed down to you. He shuffled his feet. He was speaking loud, as if for an audience, even turning his face toward the open door as he spoke. Yeah, well, but, he interrupted, I am happy that you handled yourself well in here. I know that you have spent your time wisely thinking about ways to be a better program student. Before I could answer, he bent down and leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper. I know I was the one who forgot the pen in here. Thanks for not telling. Then he held a finger up to his lips and cleared his throat again. He went back to his performative voice. I will work harder to be a better mentor as you progress. Do you have any questions for me? I guess. When can I get back to the kitchen? I tried to speak as if I were under surveillance as well. I really want to rejoin the program. He smiled. This was genuine. Had he already forgotten we were acting? Excellent. Your escort will be by in 1 hour to take you for dinner service. It should be a fairly easy shift. Perfect to get back into the swing of things. He left without another word. My door stayed open, and an hour later my silent cohort in the gray scrubs meandered down the hall and motioned for me to fall into step beside him. Mitch wasn't wrong. There were only half as many trays as usual loaded into my cart. I checked the clipboard. 20, that was all. Dread started to fill my muscles. I knew for sure that the napkins hadn't been found, so no one was in trouble over that. But why was the food being rationed down to half the regular number of servings? Was there some kind of revolt while I was locked up and people were being denied meals? The other alternative was that there were now only half as many mouths to feed, was something I didn't want to consider. It was never good when someone left isolation. It wasn't like they were released back into the wild or enjoying birthday cake in a break room somewhere. They were just gone, disappeared. Hurry up, half the recipients means half the time. I'm counting, Hemingway, the watchman said as he let me into the ward. Obviously, they had all been informed of my pen-related infraction. Yes, sir. I refused to make eye contact. That was my big man's swipe as his authority. Just another small gesture, and yet it pushed fear into my muscles, and I scurried past him, like a mouse. More than half the doors had yellow papers tacked on them, the color of caution. I read the page on the door. Resident has been temporarily relocated. Door 2 was the same, as were the rest. Resident temporarily relocated. Temporarily, maybe they were in the correction room? No, they wouldn't give us the comfort of being anything but alone in that space, so they couldn't all be there at once. Were they all being force-fed? My stomach turned. I pushed a tray of powdered eggs through the first door without a yellow sign that was shocked by a bright sliver of light. I put my face to the hole instead of the food and looked in. This was Missy's room. Her note came to my mind easily. Junior, lac des arbes. Don't date my sister while I am gone. She must have been beautiful at one time. She was still haunted by it around her big eyes, beauty clinging to her cheekbones. She was lying on her cot, staring up at the ceiling. She didn't blink for so long that I was becoming convinced she was a corpse, until I caught her halting breathing under the blue scrubs that pooled around her bones. I tried to push my lips to the slot to focus the sound. Missy! I moved my head so I could see her. Nothing. I tried again. Missy, are you okay? I glanced back at the door to see if the watchman was on his way down the hall to grab me by the scruff of my neck. No movement. One last time. Missy, can you hear me? She moved her head slightly to the left without unsticking her eyes from where they were fixed, and then slowly, as if she were operating on a different physical realm, she rolled them to meet mine. The corners of her lips twitched and then pulled back as if caught by fishhooks. She showed me all of her teeth, half of them crooked and brown, in a ghastly smile. Saliva slipped out and down her chin. She was not going to talk to me. I wasn't sure if she could, if she wanted to. I sat in her stare, spit glistening on her face, for a full minute, waiting. Maybe in a way she had also been relocated. I wasn't sure if it was temporary or not. She rolled her eyes back to the ceiling and then her head, the smile still carved into her thin face. I fed the tray through, let the hatch drop, and made my way to the next door. 19 left, 19 zombies lying on their beds, laughing to themselves while sitting on the steel toilets or rocking back and forth with big, stupid smiles plastered on their mugs. Not one of them had words, not one of them had sense. All they had was whatever was making them so jovial. One man was crying from it, laughing as he wiped the tears from his wrinkles, then regarding them on his fingers as if they were the most precious jewels. He was Henry. Sam, Travis, May, move on without me. I can do this knowing you're moving. Keep moving, Dad. And he was unreachable. What had happened? What was wrong with these people? I pushed the empty cart back to the door and knocked. Not bad. Did you have fun with the loony bin? The watchman asked, laughing. I couldn't take any more laughter today. I walked by him without a word, back to the kitchen to pick at my omelet in the quiet of continuing despair, perched on a stainless steel stool while the kitchen staff cleaned up. There was a soft clatter behind me. I turned and saw a small paring knife on the floor and one of the dishwashers walking away. Hey, I called out. He didn't turn. It wasn't a surprise. They were all still ignoring me. Hey, I called a little louder. This got both his attention and the attention of the watchman by the door, who looked up from his never-ending book. You dropped this. I got off the stool and picked up the knife. His face went red, then drained to pale. He looked around wildly. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. I was getting real sick of this shit. Nothing was easy with these guys. I saw it fall. No, he turned and started walking fast to the door where the rest of the staff was lined up. The watchman got off his stool and grabbed him by the arm, dragging him back to me. What's going on here? He addressed me. This guy dropped a knife. This knife. I held it out. I'm getting tired of not being listened to. Fuck it, let him get in trouble for being sloppy, for not obeying the programmers. I was done trying to make friends. Well, the watchman drawled. Isn't that interesting? Are you sure? Absolutely, I said, handing the knife handle first to the guard. I saw it happen. Even more interesting, since all knives were supposed to be returned to the locked cabinet that were counted by this very same worm. Wait, what? Oh no, what had I done? Seems like we have a rebel on our hands, and a potentially murderous one at that. Oh no, wait. Good job, Dewsum, he said, unhooking a pair of handcuffs from the loop of his belt and slapping them on the dishwasher. I'll make sure this one is noted with your supervisor. Your superior. Traitor, the man screamed, twisting the guard's grip. You traitorous bastard. Every face in the line was glaring at me. One woman spat when I caught her eye. The watchman got on his walkie-talkie, and soon the room was flooded with his colleagues, who patted down every person and recounted all the implements. Oh, dear God, what did I do now? I sat back down on my stool and held my head in my hands, repeating messages from the napkins to myself as if they were for me while the kitchen filled with scuffles and protests. You're not alone. None of us are. A new day is coming. I can feel it. That night, I went through each napkin in my head like a meditation. This time, there was no music. There was no more... They were more eulogy than song. When I fell asleep, my dreams were full of their faces, both the inmates in isolation and the kitchen staff with disgust in their eyes. The inmates looked tight and loose at the same time from darkness and hunger, manic gestures in locked rooms. The staff were just angry. They called for my head with their silence. At one point, I was in the middle of a ring, taped to a chair, the edges of space swallowed in dark. One by one, the residents paraded around me, giggling, their fingers bent from the girth of their glee, their steps high and awkward as if they were marionettes. I was startled awake the next morning by the door. I jumped up, tossed the blanket to my knees. Had I slept in? What would the punishment be for that? My bare feet were on the floor by the time Mitch crouched down at my side. I was trying to apologize. I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. I must have... French, it's just me. It's just me. Great news. He was flushed, and even his tie was askew. We have a meeting with Melon in an hour. This is it. She's going to give us her decision on the field test. And thanks to your quick thinking in the kitchen, it's bound to be good. I tried to shake the echoes of madness from my head. Wait, what? Agent Mellon, she's going to make a decision about whether you're ready for the final test. He shook my leg. So wake up, get ready. I'll get your shower for 8 o'clock and be here at 8:30 to get you. This could be it. If you get in, I'm sure to get promoted. He stood up, rubbing his hands together. Mitch, can I ask you something? Sure. Yesterday you told me the dinner shift would be easy, and then I got there and half the residents were gone. Yeah. And the ones who were there, well, they were different. Did you see them? His voice went down an octave. Yeah, well, no. I always check the slot before I slide the tray in, and this time the lights were on, and I saw them. Just for a few seconds, but they were, I don't know, off? He watched my face for a minute. I could see the workings of his mind as he decided how much to share, whether I could be trusted. I was depending on his excitement to make him slip up and offer some information. Let me teach you a quick lesson, French. Back in the days of massive slaughterhouses, they would push the cattle through the narrow chute before they put them down. The chute would contract and the animals got squeezed. That kind of pressure alleviates stress, releases good chemicals. Wait, we heard this from Minnie when she came to stay with us, remember? It felt somehow intimate that we were holding on the same memory, that it had impacted each of us in some way, separate but together. He squinted. No, I have no idea what you're talking about. Minnie? He tapped his chin, then shook his head. Our cousin Minnie, she's like 2 years older than you? I tried to remind him. He shook his head. He couldn't remember. Anyway, it's all well-known science, the squeeze, the chemicals. That lets them relax before the end. Then the meat tastes better without all the panic and fear in it. He spoke as if hosting a matter-of-fact radio program. We don't have chutes here, but what we do have is a supply of good chemicals. Let's just say we're looking for new ways, better ways, so everyone benefits. And then he was gone, and I was left to try and pull myself together for another day of playing model student. Christ, if I don't get out of here soon, I told myself, rubbing at the stubble growing into the lame brush cut on my head, I'm going to be laughing at my own jokes in a padded room. I looked into the hall, noticing an eerie pink outside the window, coloring the sky in shades of thinning blood. I couldn't remember what a pink sky meant, so I just got up and closed the door. All right, game on.